I kind of want to start there. I know we've litigated the Trey Lance thing a bunch of times, and we don't really. I mean, look, it's a mess, but I also respect the 49ers for getting off of it. Moving on, even though a lot of teams would hold on to him and hope that he came around. But we haven't really talked about this kicker thing. Kickers are just a tough sell, right? You even know this from your experience, Thomas. Like Younghoe Koo was a kind of a disaster for the Chargers, at least early, missing game-winning kicks and all that kind of stuff. Goes to the AAF, kicks, now he's and then I believe you signed him, right? Or he came to the Falcons in 2020, I believe. And now he's one of the best kickers in all of football. Conversely, you have guys like Daniel Carlson, who were cut by the team that drafted him, that are now pretty good. You have guys like, Roberto Aguayo, who was picked in the second round by the Bucs, never had much of an NFL career. All this is to say is kickers are incredibly important, but they're also extremely hard to predict. And so I just have a really hard time. It'd be like we went to a car dealership, Thomas, and you had no inspections on the car. And yet I'm supposed to pay high-end prices for a car that I get so I can't tell the difference between whether this one's new, this one's used, and default, all this kind of stuff. It feels like that's what kickers like at the NFL level, and yet we still have teams that draft them.
Wow, I go all the way back to earlier years in scouting, and then becoming a personnel director, and then a GM. And I've never been one that has been bullish on drafting kickers or punters, to be honest with you. I mean, look, I know how incredibly important they are, massively important in those winning days. Of course, I've been around organizations, whether it was the Patriots, whether earlier years in Atlanta, when we had kickers that we were bringing in that were free agents who have kicked for a long time. There are some really good kickers out there that you can get at a good value, right? I'm not trying to compare kickers to running backs, far from that. But I'm just saying there are a lot of really good kickers out there that I think that you can pull off, off the road sometimes, off the street, so to speak, and bring them in, and they can kick well for you. I used to look at it as when you draft a kicker or a punter, but let's say a kicker, for instance, in the top 3 rounds, I used to think that as being quite arrogant of the team that did that, thinking, wow, you're going to take a kicker where you have that many opportunities to pull someone off the street, and you're going to draft a kicker that high when you need A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z on your roster. So yeah. I'm not saying I'm totally against it. I know there's a place for it, but I've never been into it. And here's a situation where you might have, the Browns cut a kicker. I like what the Browns do often. They're a smart football team, and they're doing the right thing, but now they have to turn on it. Just like Jason Light had to do. Andrew Berry had to do at Cleveland. Now Jason Light had to do at Tampa Bay. Those are tough moves to make as a general manager, right? You stick it out there, you talk with your head coach, and you guys both agree on it, and then you have to pull away and end up cutting a player that high. And you obviously don't get the best out of it, and that's a tough thing to have happen.
Yeah, I'm looking right now at a figure by my friend Josh Norris, who works for Underdog Fantasy. These are the kickers that have been drafted since 2016. Thomas, Roberto Aguayo, Harrison Butker, which again, this is I think where it gets weird. Harrison Butker was drafted by the Panthers. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion for the Chiefs. Jake Elliott was drafted in that same draft by the Bengals. He's a 1-time Super Bowl champion that year, 2017, for the Eagles. I think Caleb Sturgis got hurt, and he got in there. Daniel Carlson is the top 2 kicker in the league. He was drafted by the Vikings and then cut after 2 games. I get a little bit weirded out here because I, like you, think the Browns are a smart group. I mean, I'm a huge fan of, obviously, Paul D. Podesta, Andrew Healy, obviously Andrew Berry, Kwesi was there for a while. Just really smart people. And yet I see the Browns repeated on here 3 times, and none of these guys are going to make it to year 2 with the team. So I get a little bit worried there that they keep repeating that mistake. Tyler, you have some examples of guys being good, like Tyler Bass and Evan McPherson was pretty good as a rookie for the Bengals. But even look at like Matt Gay. Matt Gay is the first kicker taken in 2019. He replaced in 2021 Sam Sloman, who was the last kicker taken in 2020 and won a Super Bowl in 2021 for the Rams. To me, it's just, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. To me, it's just, it's not even, it's just a problem. Like, it's so hard to evaluate these guys because no one who's like you're a scout, you're a scout. You played defensive back in college. I played tight end in college. Rarely any of us, even any of us with decent football minds like me or great football minds like yours, we've never been in the headspace of a kicker.
No,
we don't know what that's like, and it's totally different. And so we can evaluate how strong of a leg they are. We can but sometimes it's just as much as like Daniel Carlson probably hated. There was something about playing in Minnesota that made a headspace for Daniel Carlson difficult, and there was something like playing in Oakland and Vegas that made it easier. And it's just so mechanical now that I don't know if you can predict that pre-draft.
You can't. And remember this, most teams, like you said, they have an understanding of kickers. And yet we always, as scouts, as personnel directors, as general managers, as head coaches, we would defer to the special teams coach more than anything, right? There's some unbelievable special teams coaches who know every little nuance and intricate element to the kickers and their approach. And we rely on them. If you rely on the special team coach too much, however, and say, for instance, that this player is worth a second round or a third round, and we'll never see the likes of this again, I think you have to be careful with that. That's all I'm saying. Respectfully to some of the special teams coaches I have awesome respect for. My feeling is you just have to be very, very careful with that.